2020, the classic Chanel flat bag used to cost $6,500 US. Now fast forward only 2-3 years, and you're gonna notice that the same bag now costs $10,200 US. But is this price increase actually legitimate? Would you perhaps be a little bit of a fool if you get this bag in 2023? Or is this bag actually still a good investment? Let's find out. Chanel has just recently yet had another price increase. And I want to put emphasis on the word yet, because this is actually the only luxury brand that does this aggressive price increase twice per year. Did you know that they have been doing this for quite a few years now? To the point that the price have skyrocketed to a level where people are really questioning, is this bag actually worth the price? And I want to tell you one thing, is that when I say price increase, I'm not talking about only a couple of $100s. We're talking percentage price increase, especially in the US. The bag went up in price by 17% in just one time increase. That is crazy. If we look at the price increase graph of how much the bag has cost over the years, I think it's quite interesting if we actually take a look how much it has increased up until 1990. So in between 1955 and 1990, it actually has increased 500% in just 35 years, meaning that the bag cost 5 times its original value. And if we compare it to after 1990s, 33 years that leads up to 2023, the price actually has gone up by 1,000%. So the bag has gone up 10x the price. Now, I think this tells us something, because this has nothing to do with inflation. Inflation has not increased that much, and neither have we had an industry-wide increase. Because if we look at other designers, they actually have had far less increase of their iconic handbags. So how does this price increase make you feel, ladies? I want you to leave me a comment below. I want you to understand that the bag that you get today versus the bag that you will get a decade ago or more is no longer the same type of bag. A lot has changed. More and more people are now reporting things like loss of quality of their classic flat bags. But we're not talking just some small, tiny errors. Some are actually so big, so mind-blowing, where you start thinking, how is this even possible for a premium brand like Chanel, especially at this price point and with that kind of reputation? But more and more people are sharing in the luxury community and also on social media that these incidents are not actually rare. They happen more than you think. I want you ladies to understand that I am referring to loss of quality of newer bags in particular. It seems to be a running thread that people with older bags don't experience the same quality issues as people with newer bags. So I believe that this is a sign that something has for sure changed in the Chanel manufacturing process. I mean, some people are claiming that because of the incredible popularity of Chanel bags, which is true, the Chanel Classic Flat Bag is incredibly popular and we see everyone wear it pretty much, meaning that the demand has put a lot of pressure on the manufacturing of this bag, and that perhaps Chanel has maybe therefore taken certain decisions within their own manufacturing, meaning that the quality has been lowered just to have quicker turnaround times. I don't know, this is just speculation, but something is definitely up, and I kind of feel like Chanel is not really speaking up about this. They're not really taking serious ownership of this problem. But what are some common defects? Now, we do have all kinds of issues, and I'm going to go through the most common ones, because the older Chanel bags would have real 24-karat gold-plated hardware. However, they stopped using that on their newer bags. So now only the old bags have that kind of gold, which is why they also tend to stay in shape much longer.
Would never buy a modern Chanel, but let me show you the quality on my vintage one. Still in great condition from 1992, and just look at the sheen on this caviar.
But today, the newer bags that you buy, they would have only gold-toned hardware. So many women are reporting that the hardware gets discolored or has discoloration issues, which of course can be normal if a bag has been worn, let's say, for years and years. But these people are claiming that it happened only after a few months. And I want to also emphasize that this is all allegedly. This is information that we have gathered, especially from social media and from the luxury community.
You guys, my Chanel bag embarrassed me. It broke! Pearls just went all over the restaurant floor. This bag is brand new. I've worn it like 5 times. I bought it for my wedding.
Do not buy anything else from Chanel anymore, especially their bags. Already, the Chanel hardware logo fell straight off, and they refused to give me a refund.
Now then we also have people reporting that bags just seems to be in poorer quality. They are breaking, straps are breaking, chains are breaking. There are also stitching issues with seams poking up or seams maybe not being perfectly aligned. I think the alignment issues have been quite a hot topic online recently.
She spotted this at a Chanel boutique in London, I believe. The whole stitching, the zipper, everything is just so uneven. Same on this little wrist bag. Look at the stitching that first of all is not straight, but then also the zipper is super kind of bulging.
People are starting to notice more and more kind of crooked bags, especially like inside Chanel stores. You actually see real Chanel bags being crooked, which is strange. And then lastly, we also hear about leather imperfections. Now, people are saying that the famous caviar leather, as an example, often looks dull these days or maybe starts peeling off. Now ladies, the list really can go on. And I am aware that of course this doesn't happen to every single bag. There are many happy Chanel customers out there who have no issues whatsoever with their bags. But the conversation is not so much about that. Incidents happen because they happen to every brand out there. But the problem now for Chanel is that it seems that the frequency of these incidents seem to have increased. This did not used to be as common as it is today. So it feels kind of unfair when Chanel is just increasing their prices, left, right, and center, while the quality is just kind of going down. And if you are a fan of the brand, which I am personally, I love the brand, I love their clothing, I love their shoes, I love their handbags, and I will always be buying from this brand. But I am being confused, and many others too, of what's going on. Now, there's something else that I know not everybody is comfortable with voicing. But ladies, I say it how it is on this channel. So if you enjoy that type of content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We need to actually address another important point because the argument doesn't just stop there. Decades ago, the type of clientele that would buy the Chanel classic flap bags was quite different to the clientele that is buying this bag today. If back then we would spot this bag on some, let's say, chic old money lady or some high-end celebrity or sophisticated upper-class people, then today this bag is seen across not always very classy people or people that you aspire to resemble. I am aware that a lot has changed in recent decades in the Western society economically because wealth has really become more and more accessible than ever before, meaning that luxury goods have become more accessible. They're actually not as exclusive as they used to be back in the days. Think about it this way. Before, only a tiny percentage of the Western world would afford to spend thousands of dollars on a handbag. Now, it's almost like it's a normal thing to do for the middle class and even for people in the lower socioeconomic classes because one could always save up for a designer handbag if you saved long enough, or let's say if you took some extra shifts at work. I am not saying that this is a problem. It's not a problem at all. I think it's wonderful that the economy has flourished and that more and more people are now able to afford beautiful things and that, the lines between what's considered high society and what's not are becoming less and less defined. Many people can now enjoy luxury, and that's great. But it does backfire for the luxury goods market because when we buy luxury, we buy into the persona behind the brand. It's usually some aspirational avatar that we kind of associate with the brand, that we aspire perhaps to be like, or we believe that that is the type of person that represents who we truly are. So let's say today this handbag is seen on some lip-syncing TikToker who is, I don't know, twerking in her Daisy Duke hot pants. And then you kind of start thinking to yourself, do I really want this bag? Do you see what I mean? The people we see this bag on makes us sometimes question if we want this bag or not. When you pay a lot of money for a bag, you might not think about it consciously, but subconsciously something happens in you where you kind of want to be associated with something or somebody, or you want to be associated with a community. And if kind of the wrong people are wearing this bag, then you might not want to align yourself with them anymore. I know it's harsh, but we kind of need to say how it is. This is the reality of psychology, of how human beings are wired, but this is also kind of luxury marketing 101. What we desire, what we aspire, that's kind of how you need to position your product. Now, you do not need any fancy designer handbags if you want to be a well-dressed woman. What you need is to educate yourself and learn styling. And you know what? Anyone can learn styling. And I'm actually here for you. I have created an online course called The Elegant Stylist, where I share everything that I know, but also from my many years of experience with fashion and styling. And if you enjoy classic style, if you want to finally understand how you can always have something to wear in your wardrobe, then go to elegantstylist.me and find out how you can join my program and finally know how to dress well every single day. Let's talk about the counterfeit market and how it has completely ruined this handbag. Don't you sometimes, when you think, oh, Chanel classic flat bag, don't you think sometimes, oh, some dodgy market stand somewhere, or some pushy beach vendor, or I don't know, some suspicious social media pages that sometimes pop up on your feed and you're wondering, is this even the real deal? Let's put it this way, it is not difficult to get your hands on a fake Chanel flat bag, and many people are unfortunately buying fakes. You have some good fakes, you have some bad fakes, and I would say that no matter what kind of fakes are out there, all of them are tarnishing the brand. Because what happens is that you start seeing this bag in more and more places, because not only do you have the real ones, you now also have like loads of fake Chanel classic flat bags that you just see everywhere. So that kind of lessens the exclusivity of the brand, because you see every other person wearing the Chanel flat bag, and who knows, maybe that neighbor that you saw and you were wondering, how could she afford the handbag? Maybe because she bought a fake one. Maybe that's why she was able to afford it. I think the word everywhere is super important in this conversation, because actually the loss of exclusivity is not just because of the counterfeit market, it's actually also because of social media. Think about it this way. How many times a day do you scroll on Instagram and you see someone wearing a Chanel classic flat bag? I'm sure you could count it to the hundreds, because literally it feels like everyone is wearing this bag. Feel like we see this bag everywhere. Even though not everybody owns a Chanel classic flat bag, but because we see it in such high quantity on social media, our brains don't understand the difference. We perceive it as, oh, this bag is everywhere. And what happens is that it actually makes us not wanting to get the bag as much, or at least that's for me. I don't know how it is about you. Please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget, ladies, that when we buy into luxury, we buy into it because of the exclusivity element. And social media is really downgrading the experience of exclusivity, because now you can see everyone wear the same thing. Now, going back to the conversation about whether you should be getting this bag in 2023 or not, think about what this bag used to be known for back in the days. How did we associate the classic Chanel flat bag in the past? And let's compare it to how we associate it today. This is what the Chanel bag is known for today. And on top of it, an aggressive price increase and loss of quality. Now, I think it's right to say that people in the luxury community are quite outraged by what's going on. I would say the main counter argument of why Chanel is doing what they're doing is basically because they want to position themselves more like Hermes, meaning that they're trying to copy the strategy of Hermes and how they kind of position the Birkin and the Kelly bag. But I think that is not really working, because what Chanel is doing is not entirely what Hermes is doing. They're being very aggressive with price increase. So right now, the Chanel Classic Flap Bag is actually at the same price as a Hermes bag. Kelly, Birkin, which is kind of ridiculous because the quality is in two different ball games. You have the Chanel Classic Flat Bag, which is losing its quality, and then you have the incredible craftsmanship of Birkin bags, of Kelly bags. I have several myself. I can really tell you how beautifully made these bags are. I have also Chanel flat bags, and I don't think they're the same. But now they cost the same. Make that make sense. But then the biggest mistake of Chanel is that they are not making their bags to be as exclusive as the Birkin bags or Kelly bags by Hermes, because those bags are truly difficult to get. You either need to spend a lot of money with Hermes to be offered a bag, or you need to have the right connections or simple luck to get your hands on a Birkin or Kelly bag. And Chanel is not being as aggressive with that exclusivity, because now, okay, they have now made it a little bit harder. They have put in a quota, maximum 2 flat bags a year. It's also harder to get certain colors or styles, but it's not as difficult as it is to get a Kelly or Birkin bag. Now, ladies, I would personally advise you to adopt an elegant mindset, especially with your spendings. Be smart with your money and don't let anyone take you for a fool. But it is important that you educate yourself and that you try and see through the whole kind of sheep mentality where, you know, there is this hype going on. Don't buy into the hype and don't buy into the trends without really considering if something is actually worth the money, if it's worth the craftsmanship. So spend your hard-earned money wisely. And I wouldn't recommend you to buy the classic Chanel flat bag new in 2023. I would actually advise you to buy it pre-loved, because I think the price is better. And if you can also get your hands on an older bag that is perhaps of better quality, then that's even better. You could, of course, also spend the same money on Hermes, Birkin or Kelly bag, because I do think they're worth the investment, but I know it's hard to get. If you are just so sick and tired of all this drama around luxury goods and handbags, then you know what? Why not just skip the luxury hype altogether? It's actually kind of lame if you think about it. But if you are interested in getting some form of premium designer handbag, then actually I have a video for you, because I made a short list of the best designer handbags, which are not the classic Chanel flat bags. So I'm going to give you loads of alternatives of bags that cost much less, so you don't have to spend 10,000 of US dollars to get something premium and luxurious. Now hop on over to that video, because I will see you there.